Hello, fellows. Let's get started. So we're here to look at the application of the 4 steps of graphing, so as to help you to find that area in the graph that represents the revenue, the cost, and the profit of a firm in different market structures, including competitive firm and a monopolistic firm. Okay, so let's look into the first the 4 steps first. So first, you need to know what those firms are doing. Those firms are acting under the assumption that they are seeking to maximize their profit. So that is the first step. You need to make your decision, and here the decision is on Q. How many units of products to be produced? Okay, that's what you can do as the firm, right? So you are to determine how much you can produce to maximize your profit, and the profit maximization condition is marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. You're going to see it later on. Okay, so what does that mean? That means the revenue will just equal to the cost per the product in the margin, meaning per additional product to be produced. If marginal cost is higher than marginal revenue, that possibly means that you're producing too many products, right? And now that you are exhausted, right, the cost of production has exceeded the revenue from the production, and it's not worth doing, right? If the marginal cost is lower than marginal revenue, that means possibly, you haven't tried hard enough, right? So you are still leaving money on the table, and by expanding your production, right, you can seek more profit. So the conclusion is that you're going to utilize marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. That's the gold rule to maximize your profit, to determine the quantity, your production plan that maximize the profit of your firm. That's the first step. Second step, we need to find the cost. How do we find the cost? We need to find the total cost, right? Because the profit that you're maximizing on, that is the step 4, right? It is composed of 2 parts, revenue side and cost side, right? So we're looking into cost, and cost is by what I refer to as the average total cost square. You're going to see this in the next slide. And we need to, in order to find a profit, we need to also find the revenue, which is given total revenue square. And here for competitive case, it is just P by Q. For monopolistic case, it is still P by Q, and I will add more explanation to that. So let's start with the competitive case. So here we have the setup, which is price in the vertical axis and quantity in the horizontal. And we have a marginal cost and average total cost. And here, the marginal cost crosses the average total cost at the minimum point of the average total cost. Why is that? Because marginal cost, it is the driving engine. It is the cost of additional product, right? If that is higher than the average total cost, it's going to drag up the average total cost. That is to say, on the right of this intersection point, marginal cost is higher than average total cost, then average total cost is dragged up. It is rising, right? And here on the left, to the left of this intersection point, where marginal cost is lower than average total cost, the average total cost is dragged down, right? So this is a setup. And then here we are in the competitive market, right? In the competitive market, the price is horizontal for each individual firm. Why is that? Perfect elasticity, because there are numerous alternative firms who produces homogeneous products to yours, right? And you are of such a small size, that means no matter how many you produce, you're not going to be influential enough to affect the market price. You're only a price taker. You take this price as given. So this is a horizontal price line for competitive firm. Then here we need to find, the first step is to find the Q. How? Marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. So that's here, right? You find the Q, that's the first step. You know what you're doing. Then we analyze the consequence. How? By two aspects, revenue and cost. How do we find the revenue? That's pretty easy here. It is just price by quantity, P by Q. So that is the bigger rectangle, a square-ish area. Okay, now how do we find the cost? Well, cost is the average total cost multiplied by Q. That's the total cost. And here we are utilizing this average total cost curve to find the total cost corresponding to the current production level, which is Q equal to 8, right? So when you are producing 8 units, then the average total cost is 8.75. Then the total cost is 8.75 by 8. And on this graph, the corresponding area is the lower rectangle. So the green rectangle is the revenue, the rectangle is the cost, and the profit is the difference, which is the last step, the difference between revenue and cost. Here, since revenue, the rectangle of revenue is bigger than the rectangle of cost, that means revenue exceeds cost, you're making a positive gain. The profit is positive, right? If the revenue rectangle is just the same as that of the cost, then that means you're breaking even. There is no profit, there is no gain, no loss. If the cost rectangle exceeds the area of the revenue, that means whatever you're making is not enough to support to completely cover your cost, right? You're suffering a negative profit, meaning you're suffering a loss. So that's why we're doing this graph. We're trying to utilize this to help us to gain a better understanding, a visual understanding of what the profit is. So that is this case of competitive. Now let's go back to why marginal revenue should be equal to marginal cost as the golden rule to guide the firm to decide their best production plan. So look at this. Let's do this again, right? So say, in this case, which area, total revenue, that is the bigger rectangle, right? That is the price line, price P by Q, right? What is the total cost? Here you're producing 8 units. That is your average total cost per 8 unit multiplied by 8 unit. And in this case, you're making a profit. That is when you're making the decision where marginal revenue, which is price, equals to marginal cost. Now, what if your decision deviates from that? If you're producing 9 units, from unit 8 to unit 9, what happens? Well, from unit 8 to unit 9, as you can see, the marginal cost exceeds the revenue. You can only sell this product for $40 per unit, but your cost of producing the next unit exceeds that, right? Then by producing this next unit, it hurts your profit. It brings reduction to your profit, not what's doing, right? What if you only produce 7 units? Well, in that case, you've forgone some profit unattained, right? So yes, you're making a positive gain here because whatever you're making, which is 40, exceeds your cost of producing that unit. But is that all? Actually, by producing the additional unit within this area, right, within the procedure of expanding your production from 7 to 8, it could be 7 units, it could be 7,000 units, it could be 7 million units, right? We don't know. From 7 to 8 units, right? Within this process, you're making a gain, right? The gain dominates the cost. Then you should have expanded your production. So as you can see, if you're to the left, if you're to the right of the intersection point between marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, it's not the best decision. The best decision, which is a profit maximization decision, is that marginal revenue just equals to marginal cost. Now let's apply the 4 steps to the monopoly case. Let's look back on the 4 steps. Just write it on the corner of the paper. Step 1, you need to first decide what you're supposed to do for the firm. How do you make this decision? Marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. Profit maximizing firm, right? That's 1. And 2, 2 or 3, analysis of the consequence of your decision, right? Analysis of what? Of the 2 part of your goal, of the goal of this analysis, which is what the profit is. And the profit is composed of 2 parts, total revenue and total cost. So we have to find the total cost, finding the average total cost per the current level of production multiplied by Q. So that's what the total cost is. And the total revenue is the price at the current level of production by Q. Okay, so these are the 4 steps. And now let's make an application. Okay, so here is a setting. We have a price, we have a quantity, right? And we are to set up the costs, right? Marginal cost, we will need that to help you to find the optimal quantity to produce. Average total cost, we need that to help you to find the total cost later. So here we have this setup, and then we have a downward sloping demand. Why is that downward sloping? Because in monopoly, you have a certain level of monopoly power, which means the consumers, they are loyal to your product to some degree. With their loyalty existent, that means those consumers are inelastic, which means the demand that you're facing is not horizontal, like the case in perfectly competitive market. With the demand, then we have with a downward sloping demand, then we have a marginal revenue that is lower than the demand curve. Okay, so we have the costs, which are the producer side set up. Then we have the demand and marginal revenue, which are the demand side set up. All right, so now let's apply the 4 steps. First, you need to decide what is your decision. Marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, right? That's the profit maximizing decision, okay? Then under this production, what is the cost? Average total cost at the level of current production is this, right? And average total cost by the total production. So this rectangle here, right, stands for the total cost. Then total revenue. What is the total revenue? Well, you're selling this much product to the market, right? And once you're selling this to the market, the market price of each unit of product is set. Then after the price is being formed, then for each unit is the uniform price. Giving you one example, say those oil producing companies, right? They are releasing certain amount of oil, crude oil to the market. So as the consequence, we have a different oil price, gas price each different day. But after they have released a certain barrels or metric tons of oil, crude oil to the market, the price is set, right? Then for each gallon that you pump, say from the same station for the same day, right? It should be a uniform price per each unit of product that you consumed. So in that case, that's why here we can feel free to find the price on this level of production and use price by quantity to figure out the total revenue, right? So now we have the red part as your total revenue, and then the profit is the difference between total revenue and total cost rectangles, which is the narrow rectangle in between. Okay, so this tells you how to apply the 4 steps to find monopolistic profit.